All right, if you're an HR director or an IT manager, listen up. This is a critical business heads up. We're about to unpack why your current SAP SuccessFactors setup is pretty much on a collision course with becoming obsolete. And more importantly, what that really means for your bottom line. Let's dive in. And look, let's be super direct here. This isn't just about falling a little behind the times. If your team is still grinding through 2024-style workflows, you are, and I mean this literally, leaving money on the table. We're not talking about some abstract inefficiency here. This is a real, active financial drain that a lot of companies are completely missing. And that deadline, it is way closer than you think. 2026 isn't some far-off date on a roadmap. It's the tipping point. It's the year when AI-driven processes go from being a nice-to-have to the absolute standard. The whole shift is happening right now, which makes this a super urgent conversation for every leader in this space. So let's really define what we mean by the 2026 obsolescence problem. The thing is, most SAP implementations today aren't failing because they lack features. No, they're failing because of a really fundamental issue, one that a lot of traditional consultants just aren't seeing: data silos. This is the absolute heart of the matter. The number one failure point in today's systems is that information can't flow freely and intelligently across your organization. These data silos, they're the bottlenecks preventing you from getting real people insights. Like actually understanding the link between employee engagement data from one system and the real performance data sitting in another. And this is exactly the problem that AI is now ready to solve. To really get what's changing, we've got to look at the old way of doing things, what I like to call the manual bouncer model. And I bet the system is going to sound very, very familiar to you, even if you've never called it that before. So think about your current role-based permissions, your RBP, as a bouncer at some exclusive VIP club. For every single request an employee makes, someone on your HR team is manually checking a list, clipboard in hand, granting access one by one. It's incredibly slow, it's just begging for human error, and it creates a massive logjam of requests. And this slide, it just lays out all the pain points perfectly. Your bouncer is a manual gatekeeper, right? That creates constant bottlenecks and risks mistakes every single time they check that list. What this old model does, fundamentally, is build a roadblock for your organization's data. It doesn't give you a roadmap. So, what's the alternative? Well, by 2026, we are shifting gears. We're moving away from the bouncer, and we're moving toward an automated GPS system for HR. And wow, the difference is night and day. Instead of a manual gatekeeper, you've got an automated system. Instead of bottlenecks, you get a real-time flow of data. Human error gets replaced by AI-driven accuracy. See, you don't need bouncers when your system can automatically reroute data to the exact right person at the exact right time. It creates a clear roadmap for insights, not a roadblock. And you know what? This isn't science fiction anymore. The technology is already here. Tools like SAP Business AI and Joule are the engines making this whole shift possible. For example, instead of an analyst spending hours and hours on payroll audits, Joule can just automate the whole thing by reading your internal policy documents directly. You can literally upload your boring technical manuals into an AI knowledge engine, and poof, it turns that dry document into an interactive system that can answer complex employee questions all on its own. Okay, so we've talked about the problem and this whole new paradigm. But what do you do about it right now? How do you actually make this happen? Well, here's an actionable playbook with 3 power user tips that, frankly, most consultants are completely sleeping on. Here it is, a simple 3-step strategic framework. First, you're going to use AI to analyze what actually matters for your business. Second, you need to audit your user-facing self-service modules to find those friction points. And third, and this one is the most important, you have to check your AI readiness to make sure your data is actually ready for this future. Let's break these down. Okay, tip number 1, stop reading the manuals. Just stop. The new release notes are massive documents. Instead, use AI to compare the 2025 and 2026 release notes and let it pinpoint the top features that will actually drive value and impact your company's bottom line. It's all about strategic focus, not getting lost in the weeds with manual research. Tip number 2, audit those self-service modules. Let's be honest, most employees find these systems clunky. Use AI to identify the high-friction areas, things like payroll questions or the early stages of recruitment screening, and replace those manual tasks with a Joule-driven conversational AI. This doesn't just make the user experience better, it frees up your team to do way more strategic work. And finally, our third and most critical tip, run an AI readiness audit. And here's why this is so important. Most of those data silos we've been talking about, they are hidden deep inside your legacy S/4HANA migration paths, that incredibly complex web of connections from all your old systems. If you don't find them now, any investment you make in AI is just being built on a really shaky foundation. Which, of course, brings us to the ultimate question. The one question you absolutely need to be asking inside your organization right now. Honestly, it's the one that's going to determine your success or failure in this whole transition. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. Before you approve another budget line, before you spend a single dollar on system configuration, ask yourself and your team this one simple question. Is our data truly AI ready? Because in 2026, the answer to that question, well, it's going to define everything. You need to start that conversation today.